Hello and welcome to this special video. If you are interested in reversing and preventing chronic pediatric illness, then you are in the right place. Over the next half an hour, we're going to introduce you to doctors and practitioners doing it on the front lines, building sustainable business models, and some of the education organizations that can help you get there. We're really glad you're here. Enjoy.
So as part of this masterclass, we wanted to dive into exactly what it takes to build a sustainable, profitable, and successful pediatric functional medicine practice focused on a membership model. And so I'm really excited to bring in the COO of Freedom Practice Coaching, Seth Conger. He's helped Dr. Sheila Kilbane, who you've seen, Dr. Nicole Sharrock, and many more like Dr. Anna Maria Temple build these kind of practices. So Seth, why don't you share with us a little bit about the intricacies of the membership model, why it works for this kind of pediatrics, and how to organize it in such a way that you almost guarantee your practice success?
Well, thank you, James. I have a history before Freedom Practice Coaching of working in a clinic for a number of years, 7 years. And we went from a fee-for-service model into a membership model. Now, we were not working with pediatrics, but with adult care and many different types of it. And it was the single thing that shifted the trajectory of our business moving into that membership model. We did a lot of things after that, but none of those would have been possible if we did not shift into that membership model first in our business. So today, what I really wanted to walk through is a few different things. One, helping practitioners identify where they are in their businesses, whether it's brand new business or in the natural stages of scaling that I would love to go through. I want to talk about really quickly my theory of how businesses and practices work in this functional, integrative, lifestyle, holistic space that we're in. And then last, I want to just give a couple pointers on how to build a membership practice in a little bit more of a smooth way so that people aren't stumbling through it and we can give them a little bit more care. So is it cool if I share my screen and just pop into that?
Yes.
So here we are. And this is how pediatric focused functional medicine practitioners, sub out integrative or holistic in there, can build a thriving, sustaining practice. So this is my theory. I call it the scaling practice theory, and it's really thinking of the business as a living system. I believe that a business is an interconnected system, just like we think about health in systems biology terms. When we're trying to understand pediatric illness, we know it's not just one thing. Sure, there could be an acute situation that tipped off a chronic condition, but we have to look at multiple different domains to understand what's going on. And I believe the same is for the business. So when I look at fixing root causes to business issues, it is with targeted questions about where are you, what has happened before, and where do you want to go in the future. So we can think about this in an analogy of systems of your body and systems of your business. So your vision and strategy, that's going to be your brain and your nervous system, right? Team and culture is your gut. The financials are your cardiovascular system. But the trick is the problem that you see right now, just like your patients see, right? The eczema or the chronic ear infections is not necessarily that's the symptom, right? That is not the thing you need to fix. Growth is about strengthening the whole system if you want to see sustainable change over time. So the way practitioners look at these complex labs, like organic acid testing or stool studies like GI maps, I look at profit and loss statements or revenue and sales spreadsheets. That helps me diagnose and see where the pattern is and what the true root cause or causes are to walk through this. And that's what we're going to really talk about today. So what are the three different phases of business? Well, we have startup, which is about survival. It's about acquiring new patients and building your revenue, right? It's about finding product market fit, which is I have a product or service that people want, that they are willing to pay for at a reliable rate. And what you really need to be thinking about in this phase to get out of startup and into growth is applying an appropriate business model. We'll talk about those models here in a minute, but that is the key that I want you to be thinking about: driving revenue up and making sure you apply the appropriate business model. Growth is about hiring, it's about systems, and it's about now focusing on profitability, not just revenue, right? And in this model, we want to create stability. You're very reactive in startup phase, and that is by necessity because we're still trying to figure things out. But as we move into growth phase, we want to move into stability, right? Usually people can't make this leap because they just think they can sell more to get out of startup phase, and really they have to continue to sell but start focusing on hiring, systems, and then shift that North Star metric from revenue over to profitability. And then finally scaling, right? In scaling, you're pulling back and the business is able to work independently without you. It's able to grow without your specific work on it on a day-to-day basis. So this is where we get to focus into leadership, into vision, into business independence. If we don't shift into this, we start hearing things like, the owner really micromanages everything. The owner's changing everything all over the time. And they're chasing squirrels and shiny objects, right? Because the owner hasn't shifted yet again. But if you don't know what stage you're in, you won't know how to fix what's slowing you down. Just like pediatric patients, if they don't know what got them there, they won't know how to get better. And by the way, what got you here is exactly what will drive you in the wrong direction if you don't shift that going forward.
One of the most exciting things that I've seen in the pediatric world is sort of a model that has sort of the best of all worlds, essentially. Where, if you look at at Ollie Health, Dr. Sharrock and Dr. Long's practice, they are able to take care of well kids for a very reasonable rate at a low monthly rate. They're able to take care of very sick kids with takes a lot of their time, effort, and energy with like a higher monthly rate. And then they're also able to innovate in things like group visits and ways of creating community and bringing practitioners in the mix as well. And it does seem that there's like an emerging best practice for a very stable, very effective business model for integrated pediatrics.
There is. So let's talk about those models, James, because that emerging model is not insurance and it's not fee-for-service cash, right? Insurance, fee-for-service is great for insurance companies and it's great for pharmaceutical companies, but it's not great for the practitioner and it's not great for the patient if they're looking to achieve an outcome or build a business. Cash fee-for-service feels very familiar, right? So this feels, oh, that's what we did in insurance, but I'll just collect cash instead of jumping through all the hoops of all of the ICD-10 codes and all my super bills and everything else, right? So we look to this as a familiar system, but actually it's challenging for scale and it's challenging for patient outcomes, right? Because they have to choose every single time to come back to you. And every time they come back to you, you're asking them to pay for something over and over and over again, right? So we have a couple other models. There's programs, high ticket, which is really nice for cash injection and patient outcomes. But again, as you mentioned, not so great for the well visits, right? Not so great for the kids who are actually doing pretty good. And it doesn't work for lifetime value because people aren't going to stay in that programmatic model forever. So then we come to memberships, right? And I truly believe that creating recurring revenue is the North Star for any small business because it really truly creates that freedom. If you think about it, if you can get your memberships up to a certain dollar amount per month that covers all of your costs of care, all of your costs of delivery, your rent, your technology, even all of the salaries of your businesses, you're free. You don't have to bring in new patients next month. You're good to go, right? And also, it is slightly challenging in cases, and actually, I would say more challenging with adults than children, right? But challenging for complex chronic disease with adults. With children, they are so resilient that you can actually work in a membership model really well with them. So the business model that you choose is going to determine your ability to scale. And that is the first thing that you need to focus on other than growing revenue while you're in startup mode is choosing the right model. We're going to talk more about memberships today because it really applies well to pediatrics because of, again, of that resiliency of those kiddos. So why does it work so well? Well, kids are dynamic, right? Their needs shift fast. They have a lot of acute issues. We don't want to see those turning into chronic issues, right? Even if they're the healthiest kid ever, they're going to get an ear infection. They're going to have coughs. They're going to have all these other things. And memberships are built for growth, milestones, and changes. So it's just naturally it fits in there. We can create a healthy dependency with this, right? It positions your care and the community that you've built as the go-to support system that families will rely on, right? You don't want them just coming for you for a crisis solution. You want to stay ahead of that. The family is going to benefit from the care that the child gets, right? This doesn't necessarily happen in such a small episode of care, but in a membership, it becomes really almost addictive to the rest of the family to start changing their lifestyle around to what the kiddos are doing, right? The parents start eating like the kids are eating. They start, bringing in healthy habits. And so all of a sudden, this has a exponential effect on the entire family. And then also this allows you to stay on top of things, right? If they do come to you with a chronic disease, once that is maintained or reversed, it can allow you to stay proactive so that another one doesn't pop up and turn into lifelong problems. And this model, I believe, supports the whole child, it supports the whole family, and it earns that family's trust and likely their business for a very, very long time. And that's why I love this model, James.
So what does it look like as a pediatric clinic grows? Because, we've had clinics that have come in who are just getting started, right? Who need to acquire their first few hundred members. But we've also had a number of experiences with clinics that have a lot of members and then have sort of the opposite problem, is that there's just internal chaos because they don't have the right support structures and team.
How do we build it, right? I think you just have to go back to, it's all about the math, right? We have to start with what is provider utilization? How much capacity do we actually have to care for people in the first place? How do we structure our membership tiers and our offerings and the costs of those offerings? How do we understand future capacity, right? What number of members can we handle before we have to start thinking about hiring another person? And how do we stay ahead of that so we're not overwhelmed? And then we have to build in the indirect team and operating expenses. What we do, right, is we help build out a plan. We use templates to build these out, and then we watch for natural inflection points along the way to ensure that we're staying proactive in our business, like we're trying to stay proactive about the care for our patients. This is a snapshot of a capacity and utilization model that we use. Works really well when you can plug in the number of practitioners, how many hours they can work, how many of those hours are available for visits, what's their salary. I'm just going to shift over to the real model right now, which is right here. This is the actual template that we walk all of our clients through, right? So this is the page we just saw. Moving over, we can look at membership pricing, right? We can have our tiers of foundations, essentials, optimum for different levels of care. You can plug in all of the different areas of time and then all of the costs associated with it or anything that's going to be in that membership tier. And then you can look at that capacity inputs, right? How many people will be in that low tier? How many will be in the middle tier? How many will be in the high tier? What do you want to see there? And how many members can you actually handle? And then this allows you to kind of build out a summary, which is really cool. And that summary will show you exactly how many new members you're bringing in, and then what are the projections over time. So if we go down all the way down here to the bottom, we can see each of these independent memberships moving towards a really, really cool spot. And so that's a template that every single one of our clients get if they want to build a membership practice. And it really helps them not only predict, but forecast what they're going to do in the future. They know when they need to hire another practitioner, when they need to hire more indirect team members like front desk or medical assistants or others to be able to support it. And then they're not getting into what I call the messy middle, right? So this is the typical growth curve of a membership practice that doesn't have guidance. And they think everything is good because you're starting at zero. Of course, you have negative profit. You're injecting some money into your business when you start. That's the cost of opening a new business. So you have your revenue is your blue line here, right? And your red line is team members. And as you start bringing on these patients in a membership model, you get up to about 6 months and all of a sudden you have enough people where you need to make a hire, right? Then you can start getting a lot more people because you just made a hire and now you have more capacity and more help. So you can focus on bringing in the revenue. And as you do that, you realize, okay, I need another person, but it's cool because my profit's going up. And you don't realize when these two cross over, right? Because you're on a runaway train of the membership here and you missed the inflection point that is right here. And so as your revenue starts, the growth rate starts to slow because now we enter in something called churn, right? And churn is the number of people leaving compared to the total number of people you have in your practice every month. Your number of hires go up and your profit goes down. So this is the typical thing we see. When you have somebody guiding you to this, they can see that inflection point coming. And when they see the inflection point coming, we can adjust, right? And we can adjust with other services in the business that have high margins that don't take additional help needed, right? And when we do that, instead of profit going down, profit goes back up. And that's really what we want to see. And that's the big difference that I see between practices who are trying to do it on their own and figure out how to build a membership practice from scratch and ones that are getting expert guidance, such as those ones who have worked with freedom practice coaching. So I think areas to be on the lookout from. One, if you're starting from zero with no patient base, you're going to need $100,000 in startup capital, and you're going to need 6 to 8 months before break even, right? So consider potentially a short-term program for new patients to inject a little bit of cash into your business, which may help drop down that amount of startup capital you need and the number of months before you hit profitability, right? So that's one key area. Another one is diversifying product offerings and services not aligned with membership will create unexpected decreases in capacity. This is the shiny object syndrome, right? That people get a little bored after a year of having their membership practice, so they bring in a laser and they bring in IVs and they bring in these other things. And now your current team refocuses their time and effort to these new things that are bringing in revenue, but they decrease your capacity to see more people. And we see profit drop at this time. And then 3, if you're attracting challenging and complex cases who are not seeing the outcomes that they want and are churning at a higher rate, you may need to look at like an episode of care or an all-inclusive program before jumping into a membership, or just say a higher tier of a membership that is specifically designed for those complex cases, right? We can't just have a one-stop shop in this. And then at the bottom, I just have this little thing to remember. In fee-for-service, appointment utilization is the most important metric. In programs, it's number of new patients coming in. In membership, the most important metric you have to look at is churn.
Welcome, Dr. Schrock. Tell us a little bit about your education journey and where it started.
All right. Well, I started actually in conventional pediatrics. I trained at the Denver Hospital for Children, and in 2000, I was passionate, really excited about practicing pediatrics, and really believed in what I was doing. Over the next 10 years of practice, I slowly became more and more frustrated, feeling like I didn't really have the tools to address the chronic disease that I was seeing in the children in my practice. I became more and more frustrated with seeing, kids have chronic conditions that weren't getting better, and also just the nature of over and over and over sick conditions. I also, during that time, really started to listen to the moms in my practice. And I started to learn about things that I wasn't taught in medical school. Like I had patients that got significantly better when they took out a certain food. And I was like, wait, what is that? We had, I think, 2 weeks of a nutrition class. And so I started to recognize that I really wasn't trained in the way that I had thought I had been trained. And but then at that point, my husband got sick. And he was diagnosed with an aggressive form of multiple sclerosis. And we took him to UCSF, really well-known, incredible center for treatment of multiple sclerosis. And he had a lot of testing, and they said, he had an aggressive form, and they predicted that, he would be in a wheelchair by 5 years and probably no longer with me after 10. And it was a really incredibly intense time for us. That was very scary. I felt responsible, like a lot of us often do when we're caring for our family members, like, oh my gosh, he can't be sick. This can't be happening. I was also shocked. I didn't even know that he wasn't well. It kind of came out of nowhere. And I think it's part of it was that I wasn't trained to look for things in the body that are showing you that the body's not doing well. I didn't have a very sensitive meter. And I realized that as a physician, and it was kind of an intense time for me, kind of questioning everything of what I had been trained in and what I had been practicing, and then starting to ask a lot of questions. And I remember really clearly asking his neurologist, I heard that vitamin D could be helpful for an autoimmune disease. And, he kind of said, yeah, maybe you could start that if you want. And then I asked, what about food? I've also read sometimes food, and he said that was ridiculous. And so kind of helping me actually to really shine the light on the fact that I was in the wrong place, and that what we were going to be doing with Rocco's health was, giving a drug that probably was going to weaken his body by suppressing his immune system. And it really just turned me 180 degrees. And I started studying functional medicine at that point. It was really early on, and obviously I was a trained pediatrician, so there was not a lot of resources for me at that point. There wasn't training for functional medicine in pediatrics. And also I was motivated to care for my husband, who clearly was not a child. So after Rocco's diagnosis and my awareness, it was really hard to go back to work on Monday morning. I mean, I still remember that day where it was like, oh my gosh, everything that I know is being turned on its head, and what do I do from here? And I think that that's a common, I've heard this from other providers in functional medicine. It's a really stressful time, and sometimes, everybody handles it a little bit differently, but I'm like, I'm going to dive 100% into it. And it felt like I put my mouth to a fire hose, and I was just, for years, working out and trying to figure that out. And early on, there really wasn't a lot of structured training other than IFM, which was huge for me and helping me build that foundation of functional medicine. But as far as pediatrics, I had to kind of adopt and alter based on the population that I was caring for. We have a huge team at Ollie, and I think every person on this team is a critical player. So we have our providers provide the medicine, right? And then we have a somatic therapist who really works with trauma when trauma is part of the picture, and how we hold that trauma in our body, and helping us navigate and teaching patients how to help go into that and let that tension or let that trauma response go, so that that organ or that condition is no longer has a root hold. A dietitian, a functional dietitian, is very important. Food is a huge part of this medicine. What we put in our bodies every day, we know that that's just, that's really important. Movement, and, we're bringing on a movement program at Ollie Health, and I think that's also really going to be lovely. I mean, a lot of people do that on their own, but, it's an incredibly important part of the care plan. Body work, so visceral and cranial sacral therapy for us is a huge part of our medicine that we provide, which is working with those deeper tension patterns in the body and helping that to release. When you've had a condition for a long time, or even not that long, there's usually a tension pattern in the body that allows that to develop. And acupuncture is another thing that we're bringing into Ollie, because it's in that same, concept of helping things move freely through the body. I think about this, we live in a more toxic world. Everybody knows that. Whether or not you detox one molecule a day or you detox a million depends on your nervous system and and how your tissues and your body are in relationship to that entire system. And so working with those deeper emotional or mental patterns and the physical patterns that keep that from being stuck is a really important part.
How much easier do you think it would have been if there was dedicated education specifically for pediatricians and reversing chronic pediatric illness?
I think that it would make a huge difference, right? Because it would give people enough foundation to feel confident that they can do this. And there is a program called MAPS, which is amazing and offers really good pediatric education.
So we are excited to announce a partnership with MAPS, one of the premier education organizations educating pediatricians and family medicine practitioners to prevent and reverse chronic illness. Here's an interview with their president, Dr. James Newman-Schwander. Tell us a little bit about the history of MAPS and how you got involved.
Sure. So MAPS has been around since 2012. It came out of a former organization called DAN, Defeat Autism Now. And the idea behind DAN was to bring together practitioners, researchers, and parents to try and find solutions to autism, because we knew very little about what it was, why we're seeing the explosion of it. But DAN sort of fell apart in the late 2000s, and MAPS was a resurrection of DAN, but strictly with practitioners, right? So it's been around. I've been a member of MAPS since 2012, became a fellow of MAPS with the first class of fellows, and I've been the president of the MAPS for maybe the last 3 years. So we're really dedicated towards providing education to practitioners in the integrative management of chronic pediatric illness. That's really what MAPS is all about.
So it started with autism. Do you find that if you have the training in supporting that, you can help a wide range of conditions?
Yeah, well, I mean, treating autism is like treating everything else, right? Find the underlying cause, deal with the toxicity, fix the gut, repair the diet, provide the right nutrition. It almost doesn't matter what syndrome you're using. It's just understanding the particulars of that particular syndrome. So if you look at autism is primarily an autoimmune encephalitis. It's inflammation of the brain caused by immune dysfunction, coupled with most of these kids have a lot of gut dysbiosis, a lot of gut dysfunction and immune dysfunction. These are the kids that are getting recurrent ear infections, sinus infections, eczema. There's lots of comorbidities associated with autism, and it's because it's all the same problem. It's an out of control immune response. So if you understand how to manage that immune system, you're not just going to be able to treat autism. You're going to be able to treat all these other things that we see in pediatrics. Because most of the rise in chronic pediatric conditions has been with immune dysfunction-based problems like asthma, autoimmunity, eczema, and then again, autism, ADD, PANS, PANDAS, all those things.
So, Doc, tell us a little bit about the educational journey for a doctor or a nurse practitioner, and what does it take to get the kind of education necessary that can reverse chronic illness?
Sure. Well, we start with, we do 2 conferences a year, and they're 3-day conferences. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Thursday, for a person that comes to our conference, we're going to put them into basically the first module of our programming, which is, we call it Foundations of MAPS. It's definitely not a foundational kind of program, and most people think it's basics. It's not. I mean, you're going to be force-fed from a fire hose, sort of everything we do in MAPS over the course of 6 or 7 hours. We want to overwhelm you. We want you to understand that what we're going to teach you, most people don't know, even if they've been through programs like IFM, like some of these other, A4M, some of these other programs that are out there, that we have sort of a unique approach. Once you do that first module, then there are going to be 6 modules online that you can take at your convenience. All of this is CME based, so you get CME credits for it. And then we have the final module is, again, back in person, and this is case studies. It's MAPS in clinical practice. We want you in person because it's interactive. I'm not just going to be standing up there presenting a case and telling you what I did. I want to know what you would think, what you would do, and have that kind of interaction. So that's the educational part of it. And then we have people that have been through that. I mean, for many people, that's enough. But to go that one step further, we have people spend 10 hours in a MAPS practitioner's office of their choice. Okay. And basically, you now have a mentor that you can interact with to get them completely connected to MAPS. So once you have done that, you then are a fellow of MAPS. So that's that educational journey. But even beyond that, those 3 days, because this Friday and Saturday, these are plenary sessions right now. They're themed. So like last fall, it was the GI tract. This spring, it's going to be neurology. This fall, it's going to be the genomics. So we have that where we bring in multiple lecturers on that one subject. And then on Thursday, for the people who have been through the training, on Thursday, we call it innovations. It's basically a free-for-all of anything that's new and interesting in the world of integrated pediatrics. So that's the educational thing. And, I'm a big believer in continuing education. I've been in practice for 36 years. I've been to 1 million conferences. I have yet to go to a MAPS conference and not learn at least 5 or 10 new things.
Yeah.
All right. And that's with that kind of experience. So you're always, even once you finish that foundation will give you enough to move forward.
Yeah.
But it's that continuing education piece of it. And we try to establish that community in MAPS where it's not just you sitting in a lecture hall and getting educated. I always say I learn more at the bar and in the hall than I do in the lecture hall, right? Because that's where I can tell you, well, really, this is what I'm doing. I can't talk about on stage because of the limitations of CME. So one of the beautiful things about it, it's a family. People will go there and say, wow, that was like the best conference I've been to. And part of it is you eat breakfast together, you eat lunch together, you eat dinner together, we have cocktail hours, we have all these things. So we force the interaction and we tell our speakers, I don't want you flying in, doing your presentation and flying out.
Yeah.
We want you there the whole 3 days because I want the attendees at MAPS to be able to interact with you.
Yeah.
There's no like, oh, he's, president. You can't go talk to him.
Yeah.
Right? I want to be there and be available to people that have questions. And that's one of the things that makes it great. So it's not just education, it's that community.
Wonderful. Well, we'll have all the details on how you can get started on that educational track below. Doc, before I go, I know you've been doing this for a long time in Michigan. My contention here is that if you have this education, there is like an unlimited number of kids that you can work with.
Yeah, it's always hard to convince practitioners to take that leap from, I'm going to call it corporate, but, being an employee of somebody where you're, seeing patients every 15 minutes and you have all the hoops you have to jump through, to being in your own practice. I can tell you it is so worth it to do it, to be your own boss, but you have to have the faith. I always tell people, if you can, for 6 months, you will have a busy practice.
Yeah.
There is so much demand. I have a 6-8 month waiting list, right? And it's not that I'm that special. It's just, I do what I do and there's not that many people that do this. And we need, I always say, we're at war with certain elements like the pharmaceutical industry for the health of our kids.
Yeah.
And we need an army of people to defend our kids. MAPS is that army. That's what I tell people. I'm recruiting you. I want you. Right? So.
Well, we want you, and we're going to get into some of the details on how we can build sustainable practice models. But Doc, thanks so much. Appreciate all the work on the front lines, and check out the next segment.
I started with FPC a little over a year ago, and before I found FPC, I had been running my own practice for 3 years. I had left conventional pediatrics and I was doing fee for service, and I really hadn't paid myself in 3 years. And I felt like I created the same treadmill in my little niche integrative medical practice that I had been living in my conventional practice. And I was not happy. I felt like I was working all the time, but not really seeing any gains in this. And I had no idea how to run a business. So I found FPC through a couple of different very credible sources and people that I very much respected. And so I checked it out, and I knew immediately when I first started to learn about it because they had such a structured plan. I learned more in an hour-long talk with FPC than I had in the 3 years that I had been practicing. So I signed up with them, and I was really at the brink. If I hadn't done something drastic, my practice wasn't going to survive. So within 3 months of signing up, we tripled our monthly revenue. And then through that year, we actually tripled our annual revenue, which was huge. I mean, for 3 years, I had pretty much been at the same spot. So we now have a great team. We're very clear on what we do daily and monthly and yearly, and it's made a huge difference. I would highly recommend FPC to other practitioners because it has given me such a structure to my practice. It gives me a structure to how to hire people, how to manage people. I have no idea how to do that either. And it's very clear, and it's similar. If you think about the way that we practice medicine. And so we are very clear. We do an assessment. We have clear goals. We have a clear plan. And that's exactly what FPC has helped me do from a business standpoint. And it has been the single most impactful thing to the bottom line and the revenue in my practice. And it's work. I have worked really hard over the last year, and it's getting these systems set up. But once those are set up, it's just a completely different feeling, and it's extraordinarily empowering. So it's been phenomenal, and the people at FPC are incredibly helpful, and it feels like a big family. When I learned about FPC, I had been pulling money from every different bank account, and investing in a program was the last thing I thought I should be doing at that point in time. But in fact, my gut told me to do it because I really had no other ideas in what to do. And it was as much as I didn't think that I should be doing it, it has been the most valuable investment that I have made. And so even if you think that you can't do it, I would highly consider listening, learning, and invest in exploring it.
Honestly, it's the best thing that's ever happened to us. It gave me the freedom to practice the medicine that I needed to practice, and the model that we have using membership and really pulling away from that fee for service and billing insurance and really thinking in that way has just been life-giving to the medicine that we practice.
We'll talk a little bit more about that because I really feel that the membership model is something that can take this medicine to, and help it be replicated. Why did you choose that? And can you give us some specifics on how you organize it?
Yeah, I mean, we had good advisors, and in the very beginning, and we realized that we didn't want our patients to have to pay fee for service because one, there's not a lot of foundation for that for our business, but also it does sometimes inhibit people to come in and actually do what it takes to stay well and be well. And so we wanted to create a model that encouraged people. It's like if you buy a gym membership, you're more likely to go to the gym, right? So same kind of concept, and we kept the price. We had memberships as low as $50 a month, and then, as high as $300 a month, depending on how significant the needs were for the patient. So our well babies and our families could afford to do that, and it would include their care. A lot of our patients at this point had really high deductible insurances. So even when they saw us through the clinic and the hospital, we would get a lot of feedback, like, it's really expensive. I have to $5,000 deductible. I come in to see you and I'm paying a lot of money. And we just wanted to get out of that. I also think that we're not practicing insurance type of medicine, and so we did need to figure out and get creative with a way to support the functional medicine structure.
Yeah. To find out more about building a membership practice around reversing chronic pediatric illness, please click on the link below to set up a time with one of our team where you can get into your unique situation and see if this is a good fit for you. Tell us a little bit about your experience with Freedom Practice Coaching.
Yeah, I mean, that's been really helpful for us. So what happened is that our practice pretty much was growing faster than what we could do. And Dr. Long and myself were trying to run the business and be the physicians. And clearly that was not working. We were exhausted and our business was not as strong as it should be because patient care always came first. So when we found FPC was really a key point for us where we were able to take our business to the next level and really help secure how we do our business so that we can focus on the medicine ourselves and also have a lot more freedom in our own personal lives. I think having FPC on board and then what we've done with FPC since we've started, it's only been 6 months and it's been pretty amazing how much our business has already changed. And we're at the point now where we're ready to grow. At the point before we had more community demand than we could tolerate because we couldn't grow our business. And now it's something where we're bringing in more and more community in providers and growing the business and able to reach more people in the community.
It seems like there's almost an unlimited demand for care that can reverse chronic pediatric illness.
Absolutely. I think that the word is out. We have 2,000 families on our wait list. And that is like, there's just so many people want this. And I think the families, the younger generation that's coming in with children are really educated in it, at the internet and the way that they've been educated. They're up to speed and they're hungry for it. And we don't have enough providers at this point.
To find out more about building a membership practice around reversing chronic pediatric illness, please click on the link below to set up a time with one of our team where you can get into your unique situation and see if this is a good fit for you. Tell us a little bit about your experience with Freedom Practice Coaching.
Yeah, I mean, that's been really helpful for us. So what happened is that our practice pretty much was growing faster than what we could do. And Dr. Long and myself were trying to run the business and be the physicians. And clearly that was not working. You know, we were exhausted and our business was not as strong as it should be because patient care always came first. So when we found FPC, it was really a key point for us where we were able to take our business to the next level and really help secure how we do our business so that we can focus on the medicine ourselves and also have a lot more freedom in our own personal lives. I think having FPC on board and then what we've done with FPC since we've started, you know, it's only been 6 months and it's been pretty amazing how much our business has already changed. And we're at the point now where we're ready to grow. You know, at the point before we had more community demand than we could tolerate because we couldn't grow our business. And now it's something where we're bringing in more and more community in providers and growing the business and able to reach more people in the community.
It seems like there's almost an unlimited demand for care that can reverse chronic pediatric illness.
Absolutely. You know, I think that the word is out. You know, we have 2,000 families on our wait list. And that is like, there's just so many so many people want this. And I think the families, the younger generation that's coming in with children are really educated in it, at the internet and the way that they've been educated. They're up to speed and they're hungry for it. And we don't have enough providers at this point.
Thanks so much for being here. If you are interested in building a membership practice around preventing and reversing chronic pediatric illness, get in touch with us. You can book a call in the link below to find out what might be a good fit for you, and we'll look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.